when you talk about the cruise line industry, that's another interesting story about capacity. Because the cruise lines learned a very important lesson, and I hope we did as well, in the wake of 9/11. They were basically the only segment of the travel industry that could literally move their assets in the wake of a terrible disaster. And the travel industry focuses all too often on focus groups. I hate focus groups. Focus groups cannot help but lie. And the reason why they lie is because the questions are loaded. And some people don't know how to interpret the data. So after 9/11, what were travelers asked, especially in America? They were asked, are you going to be traveling? And their answer was no. How is that data misinterpreted? They didn't ask the second question. They didn't ask them if they wanted to travel. Of course they wanted to travel. They were desperate to travel. They just didn't know they could. They wanted their blankie. And the travel industry didn't give it to them. The travel industry did not hold their hand and tell them it's okay to go, with one exception, the cruise line industry, because they repositioned their ships to 17 U.S. ports, cities in this country that didn't even know they had ports. If I mention the words Love Boat, does Mobile, Alabama immediately come to mind? But you can cruise out of there. So what happened? The cruise destinations where the ships were no longer fly to, they were drive to. And the demographics changed. It's been quite interesting to see how the Clampetts go cruising now. That's right. They show up, they first stop at Costco or Walmart, and they pick up cases of soda that they don't want to spend money for on the ship. Come on, you know I'm right. You probably do it. So that's been an interesting development. But along with this capacity has been also a change in the paradigm of what the cruise lines are doing. Here we are at the MGM Grand in a city that's known for conventions and meetings, as is Orlando, as is to a lesser extent New Orleans and some other big convention cities like New York. And what are the cruise ships doing now? The cruise lines are actually building floating convention centers. There are ships at the shipyards right now that are going to hold almost 4,000 passengers. These ships are so large, I like to joke that they have high crime areas on board. That's a joke. But what are they going to do? They're going to try to compete with this hotel and this city. They're going to actually have stages big enough to do pedestals and car shows and boat shows on boats. And what is a convention in Las Vegas? It's casinos, shows, entertainment, and fine dining. They'll do it on the ships. And you know what? They figured out the demographics of the American traveling public, which are a little sad to report to you. We are basically the most ignorant, geographic, and cultural people on the planet. Where'd you go on your vacation? Aruba, where's that? I don't know, we flew. You know these people. But that's your audience. And so what does that tell you? And I think Dara would agree with me that what it means is there's really been a paradigm shift in how you approach travel in terms of marketing it. It is not the destination anymore. It's the experience. The destination has been totally becoming incidental to that experience. And you have to acknowledge that. The people who are going to go on those cruise ships might realize about the seventh day that they're at sea. Because the way that they're building cruise ships now, and they're very smart about it, they've figured out the comfort level of the American traveling public. They want Nordstrom's floating. They want a shopping mall that somehow fell over and is seaworthy. And everything becomes a profit center. So when people are selling travel, this has to come into account.